I've always been fascinated by thinking about thinking. When I was first introduced to the concept of cognitive fallacies when I was in high school, I was thrilled to put a name to the phenomena that I had always been pondering. Why do I get hung up on matters out of my control? Why am I unhappy with outcomes that resulted from my own intentional actions? Why do I convince myself of fabricated truths long after I logically realize they're false? I witness these questions and motions in my own life, in my interactions with peers, and in broader culture and media every single day. And as I delved further into the realm of cognitive scholarship, I developed a hypothesis. A stunningly large volume of human suffering is caused, directly or indirectly, by irrational cognitive tendencies. If this is the case, then a greater public understanding of the ways our minds malfunction could be revolutionary for human welfare. So this semester, I set out to be a cartographer of the mind, to draw on my own experiences, cognitive scholarship, and culturally relevant case studies of cognition gone wrong, in order to inch asymptotically closer to a theoretically complete roadmap for the navigation and subversion of the tricks that our brains play on us. As I embarked on this journey, it became clear to me that a word to articulate this central phenomenon did not exist in our current dictionary. Irrationality doesn't cut it. Numbers and concepts can be described as irrational, but that's just the state they exist in. What I'm trying to describe is more of an active behavior. Cognitive fallacies are the broader domain I'm exploring, for sure, but the phenomenon I'm interested in is a more specific and negatively vectored subset within that. The set of cognitive fallacies that lead directly or indirectly to unhappiness in self or others. Thus, I coined the term irratio. The innately human tendency to do what makes us unhappy, owing to cognitive fallacies. That innately human part of it implies that since we come from a human perspective in analyzing a ratio, we're always viewing it through the lens of the phenomenon itself. And as a result, we may not be able to ever fully unravel it. We'll always have blind spots. However, I'm here to espouse a philosophy of ratio optimism. I can't help but believe that there must be a better way, that we are not hopelessly bound to our maladaptive bouts of mental malaise. But to break the societal cycle of ratio and to spark a humanitarian revolution, we must first learn how to call out ratio in the world around us. Let's bring in some examples to see just how present ratio is in our lives and culture. Have you ever been around a group of football fans who just can't stop yelling at the TV, ruining their moods over something completely out of their control and inconsequential to their lives? You can't help but wonder why your uncle willingly subjects himself to this torture chamber every Sunday. That's a ratio. Moving to the organizational side of sports, the NBA's marketing crisis after Michael Jordan's second retirement is well documented. The anchoring biases of league brass led them to pursue the same single-star marketing tactics that were able to carry league publicity in the Jordan era, even after he retired. After years of post-Jordan inconsistency under this marketing tactic, face of the league in waiting, Grant Hill's ankle injuries finally put the nail in the coffin of the argument that this single-star strategy was sustainable. What the NBA did next, though, is a major success story in overcoming a ratio. As today, the league's marketing efforts are buoyed by a diverse cast of athletes who resonate with diverse groups of fans. The ratio continues, though, as fans can harbor in-group biases that their favorite player is the best one, while perceiving the choices of others as mere products of bandwagon. While these examples are broadly experienced and certainly eye-opening, they don't necessarily scream apocalypse in the way that I framed this idea. While public understanding of the phenomenon is deeply lacking, I'm far from the only person to notice or study ratio. In fact, opportunistic techies have built a whole cultural institution around it. That's social media. Exposés like Netflix's The Social Dilemma have helped to increase public awareness that your Instagram feed is less about your auntie seeing your homecoming photos and more about the subtle but cumulative modification of user behavior in the name of capitalistic competition. Think of your doom scroll through LinkedIn that makes you second guess everything you've ever accomplished. Your FOMO that only acts up when your ex posts a Snapchat story. That time I stayed up until 2 a.m. in 5th grade for some reason, because I thought I had to announce every single Grammy winner on my Instagram. Let's call these behaviors micro-ratio. Every instance of micro-ratio yields two byproducts: a considerable degree of unhappiness for the individual taking part in it, as well as an incremental addition to the societal atmospheres of insecurity, judgmentalness, and other threats to stability and happiness. Now multiply each of those measures by the number of social media users in the world and the number of seconds in a day. That's a scarily expansive collection of a ratio being leveraged at all times. As technological vehicles for behavioral modification continue to develop and proliferate, incentivized by capitalistic structures that are ingrained in political, economic, and cultural systems, the aggregate ratio of the world's population is now being incited, turning that once individual unhappiness into a pandemic, and forming an accumulation of influence on global societal behavior. When that seemingly benign drop in the bucket is replicated billions of times per second, that bucket quickly overflows. When micro-ratio pile up unchecked, we get something even scarier: macro-ratio. Elections have been swayed by the access to millions of irrational minds made readily available by social media marketing tools. And in a cultural landscape of likes, follows, and swipes right, teen suicide rates have hit all-time highs. Religious conflicts have been artificially exacerbated in South Asia via misinformation spread by politicians through AI-generated deepfake videos. The key to the worst of humans has fallen into the wrong hands. Grave consequences have already ensued, and it'll take a revolution to change the trajectory of societal behavior before it's too late. A journey that began out of my desire to remedy the everyday angst caused by cognitive fallacies has led me to something much more urgent. The ratio is a humanitarian crisis being exponentially accelerated by the fusion of technological behavioral innovation with corporate greed. It's not just the grave prospects of social media's reign that threaten the well-being of humanity, though. We may laugh at the insignificance of an uncle's anger at his own modish football loss, but as every minute act of a ratio piles up, it's a slippery slope to total chaos. To sidestep that imminent societal trajectory, we need every single one of us to step up. We need a public understanding of cognitive fallacies. We need to counter the corporate leverage over our behavior. We need to call out a ratio every time we see it. We need an erasure revolution. Thank you.